Have you ever met someone who says asterisk, thank you so naturally that it almost seems effortless? Not only when they receive a big favor, but even in the smallest moments of everyday life. They thank the cashier who hands them their change. They thank the stranger who holds the door open for a second. They thank a family member for making coffee in the morning, even though it happens every day. They don't hesitate. They don't force it. Gratitude seems to flow from them as naturally as breathing. At first glance, you might think these people were simply raised with good manners. Perhaps they grew up in a respectful family or learned proper etiquette at an early age. That explanation sounds reasonable, but it doesn't tell the whole story. There is something much deeper happening beneath those simple words. The people who express gratitude so easily have discovered a truth that many spend their entire lives overlooking. They understand that the words we repeat every day quietly shape the way we experience the world. Long before circumstances change, our perspective begins to change. And once our perspective changes, our lives slowly begin to follow. Most people believe happiness creates gratitude. They imagine that when life becomes easier, when success finally arrives, or when problems disappear, they will naturally become more thankful. Yet reality often works in the opposite direction. Gratitude is rarely the reward at the end of a beautiful life. More often, it becomes the reason life begins to feel beautiful in the first place. Think carefully about your own day. How many moments passed by without you truly noticing them? A warm meal waiting on the table, someone answering your message, a friend remembering your birthday, a stranger smiling without expecting anything in return. None of these moments demand attention. They arrive quietly and disappear just as quickly. The problem is not that these moments are rare. The problem is that our minds are usually somewhere else. One part of us is trapped inside yesterday, replaying conversations we wish had gone differently. Another part is racing toward tomorrow, worrying about problems that may never happen. While our thoughts travel between regret and fear, life continues unfolding in front of us without being seen. And what we fail to notice, we eventually stop appreciating. This is where gratitude quietly disappears, not because life becomes empty, not because people stop caring, but because our attention has drifted away from the only place where gratitude can exist, the present moment. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to appreciate something while your mind is somewhere else? You can sit beside someone who loves you, yet still feel emotionally distant because your thoughts are occupied by unfinished worries. You can receive kindness without truly feeling it because your heart never paused long enough to recognize what was given. Gratitude begins long before the words "thank you" leave your lips. It begins with noticing. It begins with seeing what most people rush past without a second glance. Imagine sitting in a quiet cafe on an ordinary afternoon. A server gently places a warm cup of coffee in front of you. For many people, that moment ends there. The coffee arrives. They drink it. Life moves on. But someone living with awareness experiences something completely different. They notice the careful hands that prepared the drink. The farmer who grew the beans, the person who woke up early to unlock the cafe, the countless invisible efforts that came together so one simple cup could exist in front of them. Suddenly, what looked ordinary becomes extraordinary. Nothing outside has changed, only the way they looked at it has changed. That is the hidden difference between people who naturally express gratitude and those who struggle to say even a simple thank you. One group moves through life collecting experiences. The other moves through life recognizing gifts hidden inside those experiences. The words may sound the same, but they come from completely different places. A grateful person isn't pretending life is perfect. They still face disappointment. They still experience loss, uncertainty, and pain. The difference is that they refuse to let those experiences blind them to everything that still deserves appreciation. Perhaps that is the quiet secret hidden inside gratitude. It is not simply a habit of speaking. It is a habit of seeing. There is a common belief that grateful people are simply born with kinder personalities. They seem naturally warm, patient, and appreciative, as though gratitude is part of their character from the very beginning. But after observing people from every walk of life, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Gratitude is not something people are born with. It is something that grows from the relationship they have with themselves. This may sound surprising at first. After all, saying thank you appears to be about someone else. It is spoken to another person. It acknowledges another person's kindness. Yet the place where gratitude is born is much deeper than the conversation itself. It begins in the quiet space where you decide how much you believe you are worth. Think about two people receiving the exact same act of kindness. One smiles sincerely and says, "Thank you. That truly means a lot." The other immediately becomes uncomfortable. Why are they being so nice to me? What do they want in return? I probably don't deserve this. The situation is identical. Only the inner world is different. The greatest obstacle to gratitude is often not pride. It is quiet insecurity hiding beneath the surface. When people spend years believing they are not valuable enough, they begin to question every act of kindness they receive. A compliment feels exaggerated. A helping hand feels suspicious. Genuine care feels temporary. Eventually they stop accepting love altogether. Not because no one offers it, but because they no longer believe it belongs to them. Have you ever noticed someone who apologizes every time another person helps them? "I'm sorry you had to do that. I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm sorry for taking your time." They rarely replace those words with "thank you." Without realizing it, they speak from guilt instead of appreciation. Their heart has learned to believe that receiving kindness creates debt instead of connection. But people who appreciate themselves see the world differently. When someone supports them, they don't immediately search for hidden motives. They simply receive the kind not with arrogance, not with entitlement, but with quiet acceptance. Deep inside, they believe something simple. I am worthy of being treated with kindness. That belief changes everything, because when you believe you deserve respect, you also become able to recognize respect when it is given. And once you recognize it, gratitude follows naturally. Many people spend years trying to improve their relationships without ever asking themselves a more important question. How do I treat myself when no one is watching? Do I constantly criticize myself? Do I only notice my failures? Do I speak to myself with patience or with endless disappointment? The answers to these questions quietly shape every relationship we build. Someone who cannot forgive themselves struggles to forgive others. Someone who cannot appreciate themselves struggles to appreciate life. The outside world slowly becomes a reflection of the conversations happening inside their own mind. That is why gratitude cannot be forced. You can memorize polite words. You can learn perfect manners. You can smile at the right moments. But if your inner world is filled with self-rejection, those words will always feel empty. True gratitude never begins on the lips. It begins in the heart. Imagine carrying an empty cup everywhere you go. No matter how much you want to pour water into someone else's hands, you cannot give what you do not have. The same is true with gratitude. A heart that is constantly starving for validation has very little left to offer. It becomes focused on what is missing instead of what already exists. It waits for life to become complete before allowing itself to feel thankful. But life rarely works that way. Those who appear the most grateful are not always the ones with the easiest lives. Very often, they are the ones who stop measuring their worth by achievements, possessions, or the opinions of others. They discovered something quieter, something far more lasting. That self-respect is not earned after becoming perfect. It is the soil where peace begins to grow. And when that soil is healthy, gratitude no longer feels like an obligation. It becomes the most natural response to simply being alive. Perhaps that is why the people who say thank you most sincerely are not the people who have everything. They are the people who have finally learned to see themselves with compassion. And once that happens, appreciating others no longer requires effort. It becomes part of who they are. If gratitude has the power to transform the way we experience life, then one question naturally follows. Why do so many people struggle to feel it? Almost everyone agrees that gratitude is important. We hear about it in books, conversations, and countless pieces of advice. We know it strengthens relationships, brings peace to the mind, and reminds us of what truly matters. Yet knowing its value and living it are two completely different things. The truth is, gratitude rarely disappears all at once. It fades quietly, one ordinary day at a time. The first reason is something few people are willing to admit. It is the silent influence of pride. Pride rarely announces itself with loud words or obvious arrogance. More often, it hides behind silence. It whispers that expressing appreciation somehow lowers your position. It convinces you that if you acknowledge someone else's kindness, you become dependent on them. Slowly, it turns simple words into something difficult to say. Think about the relationships that have lasted for years. A husband comes home after a long day and finds dinner waiting on the table. He eats quietly and moves on. A wife notices that the broken shelf has been repaired while she was away. She sees it, smiles for a moment, but never says anything. Parents continue making sacrifices for their children without hearing a single word of appreciation. Children grow up believing their parents' endless care is simply expected. No arguments take place. No one is trying to hurt anyone. And yet, something precious begins to disappear. Not because love is gone, but because gratitude has been replaced by assumption. The longer people stay together, the easier it becomes to believe that kindness no longer deserves acknowledgement. We've been together for years. They already know how I feel. I shouldn't have to say it every time. These thoughts sound harmless, but over time they quietly build invisible walls. Every unspoken thank you leaves a tiny space between two hearts. One forgotten moment changes nothing. 100 forgotten moments change everything. Have you ever wondered why some relationships slowly become emotionally distant, even when there is no major conflict? Often, it isn't betrayal, it isn't hatred, it isn't even a lack of love. It is the gradual disappearance of appreciation. People continue giving, but they stop feeling seen. And every human heart longs for one simple feeling: someone noticed. A single sentence spoken with sincerity can carry more emotional weight than expensive gifts or dramatic promises. Thank you for thinking of me. I noticed what you did. I appreciate your effort. These words may last only a few seconds, yet they remind another person that their kindness mattered. Without those moments, relationships begin to function like machines. Everything still works. Responsibilities are completed. Conversations continue. Daily routines remain unchanged. But warmth quietly fades away. There is another reason gratitude becomes difficult, perhaps an even deeper one. Human beings have an extraordinary ability to adapt. The things that once filled us with wonder slowly become ordinary. The house we dreamed of owning becomes just another place to sleep. The career we once prayed for becomes another source of stress. The people we once feared losing become part of the background of everyday life. What was once a blessing slowly becomes an expectation. And expectations are dangerous, because the moment something feels guaranteed, appreciation begins to disappear. We stop noticing what has been quietly carrying us all along. The friend who always answers the phone. The parent who still checks if we've eaten. The partner who remembers the little details. The familiar voice waiting for us at the end of the day. None of these moments seem extraordinary while they are happening. Only absence reveals their true value. How many people have whispered, "I wish I had thanked them more," only after it was too late? How many hearts carry regret, not because they lacked love, but because they never expressed it? Time has a strange way of teaching lessons. It often waits until something is gone before showing us how precious it truly was. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not losing the people we love. Perhaps it is realizing we saw their value only after silence took their place. Gratitude asks us to do something most people never learn. To recognize the miracle before it becomes a memory, because the greatest gifts in life rarely announce themselves, they simply stand beside us, quietly waiting to be noticed. There is a quiet truth that many people discover only after years of experience. Life rarely changes because of one extraordinary moment. More often, it changes because of the small habits we repeat every single day. Many people spend years searching for a life-changing breakthrough. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect relationship, or the perfect version of themselves before deciding to become happier. But gratitude doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for attention. The smallest habits often create the deepest transformations. The first habit is surprisingly simple. Yom guilt with appreciation. Imagine that someone waits a few extra minutes for you to arrive. Most people immediately say, "I'm sorry for making you wait." There is nothing wrong with apologizing when we make a mistake. But sometimes, another sentence carries even greater warmth. "Thank you for waiting for me." Notice the difference. The first sentence focuses on your mistake. The second focuses on the other person's kindness. One creates guilt. The other creates connection. When you begin recognizing what others have given, instead of only noticing what you have done wrong, conversations become lighter. People feel seen instead of burdened. Even your own mind begins to shift away from self-criticism toward appreciation. Words shape emotions more than we realize. The second habit is one that many people find unusual. Learn to appreciate the ordinary things around you, not because objects have feelings, but because they quietly carry pieces of your life. Think about the chair where you've spent countless evenings reading, the coffee mug that has been with you through difficult mornings, the notebook that holds your dreams, your plans, and your thoughts, the old jacket that kept you warm through cold winters. These are more than possessions. They are silent witnesses to your journey. When you begin treating ordinary things with respect instead of carelessness, something unexpected happens. Your attention becomes sharper. You stop rushing through life. You begin noticing details that once seemed invisible. And a person who notices more naturally appreciates more. The third habit may be the most difficult. Search for gratitude even during hardship. This does not mean pretending pain doesn't exist. It does not mean forcing yourself to smile when your heart is hurting. Some days are genuinely painful. Some losses leave permanent scars. Some disappointments cannot be explained away with positive thinking. But even within suffering, there is often a lesson waiting quietly beneath the surface. Many of the strongest people you will ever meet were not shaped by comfort. They were shaped by challenges they never wanted. Looking back, they often realize that the experience they once wished to escape became the experience that taught them patience, resilience, compassion, or wisdom. Pain changed them, not because pain is beautiful, but because they chose not to let it become meaningless. The fourth habit is one that people almost always forget. Thank yourself, not in a proud or arrogant way, but with honesty. When was the last time you acknowledged how far you've come? How many difficult days have you survived without anyone seeing the battles inside your mind? How many responsibilities have you carried while still trying to be strong for others? Most people constantly criticize themselves for what remains unfinished. Very few pause long enough to appreciate what they have already endured. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself one simple question. If no one else thanked me today, can I thank myself for not giving up? Sometimes, that quiet moment of self-recognition becomes the beginning of healing. The fifth habit is perhaps the most important of all. Never allow gratitude to become empty words. It is easy to repeat "thank you" out of habit. It is much harder to truly mean it. People can often hear the difference. A sincere expression of gratitude may last only a few seconds, yet it carries a warmth that no performance can imitate. Real gratitude cannot be manufactured. It cannot be forced. It must be felt before it is spoken. Even if you say it only once each day, let it come from a place of genuine awareness. One heartfelt thank you is worth far more than 100 automatic ones. These habits may appear small. None of them require wealth. None require special talent. Anyone can begin today. Yet over weeks, months, and years, they quietly reshape the way you think, the way you speak, and the way people feel when they are around you. Perhaps the greatest transformation in life never begins with changing the world around you. Perhaps it begins with changing the words that leave your heart. After everything we have explored, one truth quietly remains. Gratitude is not a destination. It is a direction. Many people believe they must become a completely different person before they can truly live with gratitude. They imagine that one day they will wake up calmer, wiser, and more peaceful, and only then will appreciation come naturally. But life has never worked that way. No one transforms overnight. Real change is almost invisible while it is happening. It begins with one different thought, one different choice, one different sentence, then another, and another, until one day you look back and realize you no longer see the world the way you once did. Perhaps that is why the strongest people are rarely the loudest. They have learned that the greatest victories happen quietly, deep within the heart, long before anyone else notices them. There will be days when gratitude feels effortless. The sunlight through your window will seem brighter, a familiar voice will bring comfort, a simple conversation will remind you that life is still full of kindness. On those days, saying thank you will feel as natural as breathing, but there will also be different days. Days when disappointment arrives without warning. Days when nothing seems to go as planned. Days when your heart feels heavy, your patience disappears, and even the smallest act of kindness is difficult to notice. Those days do not mean you have failed. They simply remind you that gratitude is not measured by perfection. It is measured by the direction in which you choose to walk. Every morning gives you another opportunity to notice something you ignored yesterday. Perhaps the person who quietly prepares breakfast before anyone else wakes up. Perhaps the friend who always checks on you, even when they never ask for anything in return. Perhaps the stranger who smiles without expecting recognition, or perhaps the quiet strength within yourself that has carried you through battles no one else ever saw. How often do we overlook the people who make our lives easier simply because they have always been there? The truth is, the human heart has an unusual habit. It quickly becomes accustomed to miracles. The roof above your head, the air filling your lungs, the family member who answers your call, the friend whose name appears on your phone exactly when you need someone to talk to, the ability to stand, to walk, to think, to dream. These things feel ordinary only because they happen every day. Yet if even one of them disappeared tomorrow, we would suddenly remember how extraordinary it always was. Perhaps the greatest tragedy in life is not losing beautiful things. It is realizing their value only after they are gone. Imagine looking back years from now, not remembering the expensive things you owned, not remembering every problem that once kept you awake at night, but remembering the people, the quiet conversations, the shared laughter, the warm meals, the ordinary afternoons that never seemed important until they became memories. Those moments are writing the story of your life right now. The question is not whether they are valuable. The question is whether you are paying attention while they are still happening. Because life rarely announces its most meaningful moments. They arrive quietly. They sit beside us without asking for recognition. They become unforgettable only after they have passed. Maybe happiness has never been hiding somewhere in the future. Maybe it has been waiting inside the moments we keep overlooking. The simple truth is this. A grateful person does not live a life without difficulties. They simply refuse to let difficulties become the only thing they see. They continue noticing light even when shadows exist. They continue recognizing kindness even when pain is present. And over time, that choice quietly changes everything. So, before this day comes to an end, pause for just a moment. Look around without rushing. Think of one person whose presence has made your life a little easier. Think of one challenge that secretly made you stronger. Think of one part of yourself that kept moving forward, even when giving up would have been easier. Hold those thoughts for a few seconds. Let them settle. You may discover that gratitude has never been something you needed to search for. It has been patiently waiting for you to notice it. And perhaps, from this moment forward, the most powerful words you speak will not be the loudest ones. They will simply be the most sincere. Sometimes, a quiet thank you has the power to change a heart. Sometimes it changes your own first.